Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Sunday, February 22nd. Can you guys believe it? It is Kouri Richins' trial eve. I am so ready for this trial, y'all. Ready to see justice for Eric, but also ready to see what we don't know about this case. And if you guys think we know everything that the prosecution is going to present, think again. I think they're going to save their most damning and explosive stuff for trial. We'll see if I'm wrong. But what we're going to do now is we are going to do our crash course that we always do right before we start a new trial for people that may not know enough to really understand what's happening. Or if you need a refresher because this has been going on for a few years, I got you covered. Let's jump in. Kouri's trial starts Monday in Summit County, Utah. She's accused of poisoning her husband, Eric Richins, with a fatal dose of fentanyl. In fact, his autopsy showed it was 5 times the lethal dose. He was pronounced dead on March 4th, 2022, and Kouri was arrested much later, May 8th, 2023. The charges she faces for this trial are aggravated murder and attempted criminal homicide, both first-degree felonies. 2 charges of false insurance claims, each of those a second-degree felony. She faces a forgery charge, which is a third-degree felony. And that's it for this trial. But Kouri will have a second trial at some point for 26 more financial crimes. Let's go back a bit to where this all started. Kouri and Eric met when she was working at a Home Depot, and she caught Eric's eye. They started dating, and they were married on June 15th, 2013. At the time they were married, they already had 1 son, and then they went on to have 2 more sons during the course of their marriage. Eric was very successful in his stonemasonry business he co-owned with a friend, and they did have a prenup in place that set out multiple financial terms for their marriage. That prenup specified that certain assets would remain in Eric's sole property, including in the event of a divorce. However, it also stated that Kouri could claim ownership of some assets if Eric should die prior to Kouri while the two were lawfully married. Those assets included Eric's 50% ownership interest in C&E Stonemasonry LLC, as well as equipment and property such as a forklift, a skid steer, scaffolding and saws, 2 trucks, and a dump trailer. For herself, Kouri started a real estate business, Kouri Richins Realty. That was back in 2019, but Kouri was not very business savvy. She was racking up huge amounts of debt unbeknownst to Eric. And by 2022, her business was failing by epic proportions, and Kouri was millions of dollars in debt. Her financial troubles started basically from the moment she started the company. Back between 2015 and 2017, according to a petition filed by Eric's sister, Kouri Richins Benson, Kouri's financial troubles began when she allegedly began taking money from Eric to help with her buying and selling homes. But was Kouri trying to poison Eric years before she allegedly succeeded? A few years before his death, Eric called his sisters from Greece and said he became violently ill after consuming a drink Kouri had made for him. His sisters alleged Eric thought Kouri tried to kill him on that vacation. And just to add, Kouri was also having an affair with her handyman, and that affair had allegedly been going on for several years. In one instance, a friend of Kouri's was over talking about her impending divorce when Kouri allegedly told her that she was frustrated because she didn't feel that she had an easy path forward in divorcing Eric. Kouri said she was concerned that Eric would turn her children against her and that his family would use their finances to take their boys away from her. Kouri said she felt trapped and stuck in the marriage and didn't see a way out. Kouri said that in many ways it would be better if Eric were dead. Moving back to 2019, Kouri started stealing from Eric as well as misappropriating monies that were distributed from Eric's business. Kouri used a fraudulent power of attorney to execute a $250,000 revolving credit deed of trust, that's also known as a HELOC, on Eric's home and withdrew the entire $250,000 from this home's equity line of credit. Kouri stole payments intended for Eric's state and federal taxes, totaling almost $200,000. By September of 2020, Eric found out Kouri had withdrawn $100,000 from his bank accounts and that she had charged about $30,000 to his credit cards. When he confronted her, Kouri promised to repay the money, but according to Eric's sister Katie, Kouri never did. In text messages with her best friend, Kouri said, "I don't know what to do. If he thinks I owe him money, then that's fine. I'll pay whatever he thinks and then I'm out. It's getting a little out of hand." Her best friend asked, "How much did you take out?" And Kouri said, "A lot." The best friend asked, "How long do you think it would take you to pay Eric back?" Kouri said, $250,000. "It'll take me a couple of months until my investments pay out, so I just gotta be top-notch careful. He's totally going to, I feel like, and then the crap will hit the fan. And there's nothing more important to me than the boys and making sure custody is always going to be at least 50-50. And if he digs and finds something, I don't want him hiring some expensive attorney to fight the kids or something." Katie's petition she filed in court after Eric's death said that Kouri had stolen or misused approximately $494,000 of Eric's funds in total. October of 2020. Eric sought advice from both a divorce attorney as well as an estate planning attorney. He revised his will and created the Eric Richins Living Trust. That put his estate under the control of his sister, Kouri Richins Benson, and that was for the benefit of his 3 sons. He also transferred his partnership interest in his business into the trust and changed the beneficiary of his $500,000 life insurance policy from Kouri to the trust. His attorney filed a statement with the court after his death that said, "Eric told me he had 2 primary goals. His first goal was to protect him in the short term from fairly recently discovered and ongoing abuse and misuse of his finances by his wife, Kouri. His second was to protect the 3 young sons he and Kouri had together in the long term by ensuring that Kouri would never be in a position to manage his property after his death." I think we can all say Eric Richins, very smart man. Kouri herself also looked into getting a divorce. She had a law firm on retainer. Prosecution alleges in a court filing that Kouri ended the consultation and told her brother the reason she canceled that consultation is because she didn't want half of everything. She wanted to walk away clean and free. In this filing by the prosecution, it says the court, however, may reasonably infer that the opposite is true. The defendant didn't want half of everything. Remember, she wanted all of everything. Accordingly, she was determined to cause Eric Richins' death. Kouri had set her eyes on a 20,000 square foot unfinished mansion to buy and flip, but Eric was not on board. The cost of the mansion was $3.9 million, and the projected cost to finish this 8-bedroom mansion was estimated to be around $2 million, which Eric thought was way too much. Eric's family said he planned to tell Kouri no on buying that mansion, and his family said this mansion was the source of arguments between the two. January 1st, 2022, just a little over a month before his alleged murder, Kouri changed the beneficiary on Eric's business partner's $2 million life insurance policy to herself without authorization. The original beneficiary had been Eric. Eric and his partner each had $2 million policies on each other as part of a buy-sell agreement for the business. These are very standard in business, and they're designed to pay the other partner's interest in the business in the event of a death. The insurance company, however, flagged the change, and Eric was ultimately reinstated as the beneficiary. Between January and February of 2022, Kouri had started texting her housekeeper, Carmen Lauber, asking for painkillers for an investor who was having back problems. Carmen, who was the middleman, acquired some hydrocodone from a dealer. Kouri told the housekeeper to leave the pills at a house that Kouri was flipping in Midway, Utah. The housekeeper left the pills, and Kouri left $900 in cash. It was confirmed by investigators that the house was owned by Kouri during this time frame. February 11th, 2022. Kouri contacted Carmen again, but she asked for something stronger and said some of the Michael Jackson stuff. Then she asked for fentanyl. Carmen acquired 15 to 30 pills and delivered those to Kouri. Kouri, in turn, paid another $900 for those pills. Later on, investigators found text messages between Kouri and Carmen, which had been deleted. Moving forward to Valentine's Day 2022. Kouri bought Eric his favorite sandwich from a local diner and left that on the seat of his truck with a love note. After just a few bites, Eric got very sick, breaking out in hives. He was having trouble breathing and essentially passed out after using his son's EpiPen and drinking Benadryl. Once he woke up, he called his business partner and said, "I think my wife tried to poison me." But by this point, Kouri's financial situation was dire. She was taking out loans with hard money lenders, and those are meant to be short term because the interest rates are astronomical. She owed over $1.7 million to hard money lenders at the time of Eric's death, as well as countless personal loans with extremely high interest and high daily or weekly payments. She was essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul every single day. Her bank accounts were overdrawn, and she was still racking up the debt on Eric's credit cards without his knowledge. The night of Eric's death, she told investigators they were having a drink and celebrating her closing on the mansion, which we all know wasn't the case. Eric was not on board at all. Kouri said she slept in one of her son's bedrooms and didn't bring her phone with her. She said when she returned to the bedroom around 3 a.m., she found Eric cold to the touch. She called 911 and claims to have started CPR. That was later disputed as Kouri wasn't doing CPR when EMS arrived. And once they did start CPR, Eric had a bloody foam coming out of his mouth, and his appearance was not consistent with Kouri having done CPR on him. A responding paramedic said he thought Eric had been dead a while. Regarding that mansion, Kouri bought it anyway, literally the next day after Eric died. What did she do after she bought it that night? She had friends over for a celebration where it's been said by people who attended, Kouri was drinking, laughing, and dancing as if nothing had happened. Kouri still at this point had no clue that Eric had changed his will and that power of attorney from Kouri to his sister Katie. This also included the marital home, and in doing this, Eric made Kouri's finances completely unstable and something she would not be able to resolve, but she didn't know it yet. However, the morning after the party, Kouri called a locksmith to try to get into Eric's safe. Eric's sister was like, "Not so fast, Kouri." She then threw Kouri the plot twist, letting her know that Eric had created the trust and that none of it belonged to her. What was Kouri's reaction? She proceeded to punch Amy in the face and the neck. Kouri later pleaded guilty to assault for this incident. So this was when Kouri found out she wasn't the beneficiary of his estate, and essentially, she had been cut completely out of his will. Court filings showed that Eric was afraid Kouri might kill him, but Eric wanted his sons to be taken care of, which is why he made that switch. And also, before Eric's death, Kouri took out life insurance policies totaling almost $2 million without Eric's knowledge by forging his signature. As far as the night Eric died, cell phone analysis showed Kouri unlocked her phone several times throughout the night with messages that were sent and then deleted. Later on, investigators found communications about Kouri obtaining pills and also Eric believing Kouri was trying to poison him. As far as those life insurance policies that she took out without Eric's consent, she did get around $1.9 million in life insurance payouts from the ones she forged. And also, the night of Eric's death, prosecutors say Kouri's lover texted her a photograph of two people kissing that was captioned, "Love you." A little more than an hour later, Kouri allegedly responded, "Love you," with a kissy face emoji. Now, after Eric's death, Kouri thought it would be a good idea to write a children's book on grief called Are You With Me? She appeared on a local TV station to promote that, and just weeks after that book was published, Kouri was arrested on May 8th of 2023. After her arrest, Kouri's troubles didn't stop there. During a cell search, officers recovered what is now referred to as the Walk the Dog letter, which prosecutors say was an attempt to tamper with witnesses, to influence the public and retaliate against the Richins family. Kouri, on the other hand, claims it was for a fiction book she was writing. This was written to her mother, Lisa Darden. In the letter, she says her former attorney said they need to link Eric getting drugs and pills from Mexico, so they needed some kind of connection. Now, on a side note here, just to make this make a little sense, Eric would take trips to Mexico to go hunting, and that's where this comes in. In the walk the dog letter, Kouri then makes up a scenario where her brother and Eric were talking one night, and Eric tells her brother he gets pills and fentanyl from Mexico. She says Eric always wanted Kouri to take the fall if he ever got caught, saying that he would put drugs in her bag at the airport right before they boarded. She then puts little asterisks and says, "Reword this however you want. Just include it all. The connection has to be made with Mexico and drugs." Ronnie will have the messages to prove Eric confided in him about getting high. He can be short and to the point, but it has to be done. Kouri tells her mother, "When you talk to Ronnie, meet with him in person. I worry sometimes your house and phone are bugged." She later says, "Tell him I need him to do this. Bring me home and we will get those damn B words," referring to Eric's sisters. She goes on in the letter to say, also, please text Lotto or call. Lotto is a lover after Eric's death and after she ended things with the handyman, the lover she had when Eric died. Tell him do not text me anything about us doing things together ever, like church, skiing trips, nothing that puts us together. It doesn't look good. She then tells her mom to take vague notes of all this so you remember before you walk the dog. Continuing on, she says, one way to get at Katie, which is Eric's sister, is going through my phone and finding a picture of her girls, even with the boys. Print 15 copies and send them out anonymously to different media companies. Obviously, don't email the picture so it's not traceable. She would be livid if it got out to the public. So what do we expect at Kouri's trial? They've slated 5 weeks or so for this trial. We'll see if that actually happens. There are at least 1,000 exhibits that could be presented, as well as testimony from at least 10 experts and 100 other witnesses who could potentially be called. The prosecution has also identified almost 100 jail calls between Kouri and her mom, as well as Kouri and her brother. In one of these calls that happened the day of her arrest, Kouri comes up with a new claim that Eric asked her to get him the pills. This comes on the heels of countless statements to law enforcement, friends, and yes, even her lover, that Eric didn't do drugs. Kouri's attorneys have said that Kouri has waited nearly 3 years for this moment, the opportunity to have the facts of this case heard by a jury, free from the prosecution's narrative that has dominated headlines since her arrest. What the public has been told bears little resemblance to the truth. But I have a feeling that the truth is going to be a whole lot worse than the little bit we've heard so far. Tomorrow morning, we start openings live, 10:30 Eastern. Come join us. I will do a morning recap of opening statements and the first witnesses. And then tomorrow evening, I will be doing a recap of the afternoon testimony. So that way, if you're on your work break or you're sitting in the car pickup line, you can at least stay caught up. With this trial being 2 hours behind East Coast time, it could be a little later that I get that second episode out, but my goal is to have it out before 10 p.m. every night. I could do 10 episodes about this to really tell the whole story, but we're going to watch it unfold in court every single day. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want alerts of when I post new content, just click that little bell icon. Justice for Eric Richins, his boys, his sisters, his whole family who undoubtedly love and miss him every single day. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.